Hi, everybody, and welcome to the RIMS Wellness Center. I'm so happy that once again in 2021, Sedgwick's hosting this wonderful section of RIMS. It's an opportunity for us to talk about health and well-being and really learn more about what's going on in our industry. And today I have Steve Figliuolo from Chick-fil-A, one of my favorite clients and businesses. Steve, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Kim, thank you. So I am Steve Figliuolo, and I am the Principal Program Lead of Claims at Chick-fil-A Corporate in Atlanta, Georgia, which I realize that is sort of a mouthful to say and probably a little vague, right? You're probably wondering what exactly is a Principal Program Lead of Claims. And honestly, it just means I oversee the casualty claims program holistically. So I do have a lot of interactions with the examiners and our third-party administrator, as well as our owner operators who really are in the trenches and dealing with the injured workers directly.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I know one thing about you, you know your program and spend a lot of time on what makes Chick-fil-A a good program. So you're perfect for this conversation. And for our audience, our topic's really around employee engagement and experience. And I couldn't have asked for a better guest today, and in part because Chick-fil-A has such a strong culture. Their culture, their corporate culture, the way they consider running their business and the tenets that make Chick-fil-A what they are known for and what they strive to be, I think is a good place for us to start, Steve, because I know then we can get into the claims program and that will flow pretty nicely. So why don't you talk a little bit about your company's corporate culture?
Sure. Well, obviously it starts from the top in senior leadership. And although Truett Kathy is no longer with us, the Kathy family is still very involved in running the organization, especially on the corporate side, and selecting the operators who really are just an extension of Truett's vision. Back in the 80s, not many people know this, but Chick-fil-A was actually really struggling, and we weren't necessarily sure what was going to happen. It was just a very challenging time. So our leadership decided, okay, we're going to take a little corporate retreat and we're going to come back and we're going to figure out what to do. And they came back with our corporate purpose, which still holds true today. And that purpose really was simple. It was to glorify God by being a faithful steward to all that is entrusted of us and have a positive influence on everyone who comes in contact with Chick-fil-A. Sounds pretty simple, but it really does start to resonate. And so the two things that obviously stick out to me are being that faithful steward and having a faithful being a faithful steward and having that positive influence on everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't just mean our operators or our team members, but that also extends obviously to our guests. We want everyone to have a pleasant experience as well. And it really goes to everyone up and down that chain of command. So that's really where it starts, to be honest with you, Kim. And for us, how that translates into our claims program, it's sort of evolved over the years, like most things. But it boils down to we want to make sure that we pay the claims that are owed and defend the ones that aren't. And that sounds simple, but nothing in workers' comp is really ever all that simple.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I anticipate the company probably thinks about this as well with your talent attraction and retention. And so it probably is just expected as well that your employees, when injured, would have that same type of care and passion that you probably have throughout all of your company, I would expect. Did they give you expectations around that, or is the culture so strong that as you began creating your claims program, you just innately sort of brought those tenets into the program?
It's a little bit of a mix, to be honest with you, Kim. It starts at the top. It was the people before me who had that same vision of, why is workers' comp always treated almost like a black hole when it comes to healthcare? I understand there's a lot of rules and regulations, but at the end of the day, if I wouldn't go to this particular doctor myself, or I wouldn't send my family member there, why should we send one of our injured team or other employees. And
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we send them to that best level of care that's available to them.
I think about your program and some of the conversations that typically take place around improving experience. And when you improve experience, you usually get improved engagement, or sometimes in comp, we think about that as compliance or active participation, but certainly empathy and transparency, very clear communication, and just being a general support person, not just this is what you do next, but this is sort of the storytelling. This is the process to expect. And so if we think about your claims program and how Chick-fil-A claims are handled, and even maybe to some of the partnerships you have, describe some of that in how you take the corporate culture and paying the claims you need to pay. But what are some of the key elements you have to drive success?
So we like to treat every claim and every person behind that claim as an individual, as a human being. And our message to our third-party administrator, who we've got a very strong relationship with, is that you need to treat everyone with the same dignity, honor, and respect, regardless of whether that claim is going to be accepted or if it's going to be denied. Because let's face it, not every workplace injury means someone was injured within that course and scope of employment, and it will be a covered claim. So for those claims that are covered, we've really implemented a couple of things that have sort of broken down just some of the question marks and the barriers to workers' comp. Because let's be honest, I think most people go to work every day expecting to return in the same condition.
Yeah.
And most people, if you ask them, have no clue what workers' compensation is. So we have a 24-hour call line that our team members can literally call any single hour of the day, even on a Sunday when we're closed, if they need to report a claim or if they just have a general question about their claim. And they're always going to reach a live representative who can at least answer that question or at least schedule them a time to speak with their examiner if it's something that's going to be very, very claim specific. And we found that when those questions are answered, our team members are put a little bit more at ease. Yeah. And they're not really feeding into some of the rumors that people hear when it comes to workers' comp. And I think it makes a big difference to have that human connection, that other voice on the line who can give them a little bit of peace of mind. I mean, these are people who are injured, right? And they're looking for answers.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, do they have to talk with a supervisor before they call, or they have the autonomy to be able to call on their own?
So a few years back, we had a standard model where if someone was hurt, they had to go to a shift lead or a supervisor or whatnot. And then that person would then call a claim in to our claims company, which is fine. But when you're in a restaurant setting and if you're in a lunch rush, sometimes it's really tough to take two people out of that mix and then potentially add a third and fourth person to backfill those roles to report a claim. So we empowered our team members to do self-reporting. And the thought process was, if you're going to be reporting the claim, it's going to be investigated anyway. So if it's something that shouldn't have been reported, then our claims examiners will be able to flag that, and then they'll be able to relay that information. And if it's something where that team member does need that immediate care, well, at least now that's one less step that they have to take in waiting for someone else to get to the phone and report a claim on their behalf.
No, I think it's a very interesting model. I encourage others that might be in the audience, if you haven't considered self-reporting of workers' compensation claims, that you do, because it also lifts a burden of trust, I think, that is inherent when somebody isn't allowed to say, hey, I'm injured, or I want to know if I need to be seen for this, and even have that inquiry, as you mentioned, when they have to go to somebody. And even though we don't want those burdens, we want people to always trust leaders. We have found that claims volumes don't go up when we have self-reporting. We may see a month of a blip, but it'll settle back down. And it really has helped our claims process. So I'm really glad you shared that. I think we're in an on-demand environment today. And so some of those programs that were put in place probably meant a lot when they were in place, but I think it's time for us to sort of peel back the onion and see if we still need to have that.
Yeah, we basically always say if we can't cleanly explain the why behind it, then maybe it's time to reevaluate it. And those were the conversations we had behind the scenes. Were why are we making them go to a supervisor to report something when that injured worker has the most knowledge of their own injury?
And just because of my clinical background, I'm curious, what type of case management do you have involved that partners with the claims team to drive results? What does the sort of the program design of your claims team look like?
Sure. Well, it starts with a nurse triage line. So going back to that self-reporting, injured workers have an opportunity to speak to a live nurse who can help triage and diagnose where that appropriate level of care needs to be. I think most of our team members automatically assume, hey, if I cut my hand, I have to go to the emergency room. And they don't really understand that there's an urgent care right across the street who can stitch them up in probably less of a wait time. And what we found is that these nurses are helping, they have all the claim information in front of them, so they can send that over to that urgent care. So by the time our team member arrives, all the insurance billing to workers' comp is already there. So now we're seeing our team members not receiving collection notices because, again, the doctors already have the insurance information. They know who to bill. A person can be seen and they can get in and out rather quickly and hopefully back to work. Now, outside of that, we do have a very strong use in telephonic case nurse management as well as field case management. Now, of course, 2020 is an anomaly because we did a little bit of a difference, right, with social distancing and things that we were just forced to do. But traditionally, we do rely a lot on our nurse case managers, which they help move the claims along. And they, again, help make sure that there's nothing that's falling through the cracks and they're getting our team members that appropriate level of care as it relates to their injury. The last thing I think anybody wants on their claims program is for, a left foot injury turning into a cervical fusion 2 months later.
Isn't that the truth? When you think about your corporate culture, the way you want to passionately take care of Chick-fil-A employees, are there certain attributes of maybe a few of your top claims examiners or leaders on your team that you can say, this type of personality, or this, maybe it's not personality, maybe it's skill sets, but for your type of program, what are some of the skills that you look for?
So empathy, believe it or not, is one of the highest skills that we look for when we're interviewing someone new to really act as a claims representative on our account, because we view them as a true extension of Chick-fil-A. And I think it's very important that that claims examiner has that empathetic ear to whomever they're speaking to. Again, regardless of whether that claim is going to be compensable, you still have to come at it and approach it with a sense of compassion, because you're still dealing with a human being. And I really hope I don't jinx this, but my claims team has been pretty consistent over the years. I'm going to knock on wood over here. And really, it's the ones who, we find that really they want to work for us. They enjoy working the Chick-fil-A claims because it's a different experience.
And I think that's really what I wanted to get across to the audience. In our industry, not just my own company, our industry, there's a fair amount of turnover. And when you have a corporate culture that's positive, when you have a risk team, claims managers who are positive, and when the claims team can feel like they are an extension of the risk management team that has the similar goals. And then you have people that don't want to leave that account. And I, of course, hear about that regularly with Chick-fil-A. I always wonder if it's because they've got some good food coming into to their lunches, but that's not the case. I will say that. But we all love our Chick-fil-A. There's probably people in the audience, Steve, that are wondering, maybe to be able to move their program along, maybe similar from a corporate culture or in a variety of ways that you've described. But if somebody's starting from scratch or really starting to rethink their program, do you have any suggestions or ideas on how they might go about that?
I think the first thing that they should do is have a real sit-down conversation, with their client service director, and and sort of come together with a shared vision of what they want the program to look like. Because our program would not be what it is today if it wasn't for leadership with our third-party administrator and, in-house at Chick-fil-A risk management. Now, again, we lean very heavily onto our partners, but these are the people who, they see things from all aspects. We're not the only client that they've ever had an experience with. So maybe they know something that works great on another program that could translate over to this other company's needs. But the buy-in is to have everyone on the same page. Otherwise, it's just never going to work.
And when I think about somebody sitting in your role, I think you gave great suggestions. Who else in your organization, or when you think about sort of the cross-functional impact of what change means to whether it's your owner operators, others within Chick-fil-A, who are the types, or what are the other business groups that you might bring in to say, hey, we think we want to make this change?
We have invested heavily on our risk control group. And this is going to sound probably a little counterintuitive to those of us in the claims world, but I truly believe the best claim is the claim that never exists. Because ultimately, I'm going to be spending money on my loss pick the moment that injury occurs. But if I want to spend $0, I need to prevent that injury from occurring. So we look a lot at the types of claims that we see, the types of injuries, and then we partner with our internal and our external risk control partners and say, okay, where are the areas for improvements? What can we do better? And how do we keep our people safe? And yes, that means I'm working myself out of a job, but I will gladly find something else to do if that means my claim count can be 0 for a year.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really good idea. So we've talked about it, just a variety of ways in which your Chick-fil-A program really promotes trying to improve employee experience. And I know certainly we all hope that that drives engagement and ultimately positive outcomes. But in close, just kind of wrap up what you think your program has been able to bring to drive improved outcomes and employee experience.
I think transparency is the key. I think it really stems from our 24/7 call center with our third-party administrator who can answer those questions for the team members, because that sets the tone for the rest of the claim. It really does. And, we couldn't do it without the team of professionals. Like I said, the claims team, they're an extension of us. They understand our vision. They've got the buy-in. And it seems to be working for us. And I'm looking forward to see what the future can bring and what innovations that may be out there in a year or two from now. And hopefully we can revisit this conversation with some new ideas.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I do think tech is changing so fast with AI and machine learning and automation, robotic processing, just a lot. So I'll hold you to it and bring you back. But before we close, what's your favorite Chick-fil-A menu item?
It has to be the chicken minis. I love those things. And I'm pretty sure if left to my own devices, I can eat an entire tray.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us in the Wellness Center today, and enjoy the rest of RIMS.
Thank you, Kim. You too.